I've never had a problem running a stock starter on my small block Fords, my 289 or my 351 Windsor. Even on the 289, when it was in a high compression configuration, it was close to 12 to 1. And I never had a problem with the stock starter, even when the engine was hot. You have to be careful about how you set your timing, but as long as you have the timing right and you can keep the engine running at a reasonable temperature, hot starts usually aren't too big a problem. But with this engine, it's quite a long time since I last ran the 289. There are a lot of improvements in technology, and so I just decided to go with a more modern starter. So what I'm going to use on this engine is the Powermaster 9603. Powermaster makes two starter models for the small block Ford. The 9503, which has about a 4 to 1 gear reduction, 4.5 to 1, something like that. And then the 9603, which is a little bit less, about 3.5 to 1. So since I never had a problem with the stock starter, I didn't feel a need to go for the higher gear ratio of the two. So I just went with the 9603. It's about 3.2 to 1 or something like that. But it's substantially smaller, and it has a lot of options for mounting it in the fact that it allows you to clock the starter to mount it in a configuration that helps you to create more room around it and package it neatly under the engine. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. First, let's take a look at the stock starter. A lot of you will be familiar with this. It's a monster. They're really, really heavy, these old starters. They're direct drive. They don't have a substantial amount of torque, but they've got enough to get the job done. On most of the stock Ford bell housings for an automatic transmission, you could just bolt this up. I've had this one bolted to an FMX, and I've had it bolted to a C4, and it just bolted straight up fine. I run the 157 tooth flywheel on my 289 and my Windsor. Yeah, that's right. It's also been on my 351 Windsor with a 164 tooth flywheel. When it was bolted to the top loader, I had to use the spacer here. This is a factory Ford part, but in order to locate the starter properly in the manual transmission bell housing, the factory one anyway, you had to use a spacer like that. So they're very inexpensive, they're readily available, they're really reliable, and so I did debate quite a bit whether or not I was going to move away from it, but I decided to give a newer starter a try. And so this is the Powermaster starter here. It's pretty compact. It has some really interesting features to it in that if you loosen these two screws, one on either side, you can rotate this flange through 360 degrees, and that allows you to determine how you want to mount this to the engine. And in my case, I didn't want the body of it too close to the block, but I didn't want it too far out towards the frame either, and I was able to find a nice sweet spot in there. It did sort of obstruct this fastener hole with the body of the starter, so I just rotated it to the side, stuck the bolt through, and then rotated it back where I want, and this bolt is kind of captive now, which is fine. Just means I won't drop it under the car. There is a little setup that you have to do with these, and it has to do with how close the edge of these teeth, the outer edge where my finger is right on the tip, how close that is to the teeth of the flywheel. And so you have to take a measurement. You measure from the outer flange here where the starter sits to the back side of the teeth, the side closest to the camera, and that'll tell you how far in from this flange the teeth are. In my case, it was, I think, about 0.690 of an inch. And then the second measurement you take is to determine how far out these teeth are. And so you measure from the flange here, not from the step, because the step goes inside the circular opening here. You need to measure from the flange itself. Measure from the flange to the edge of the teeth. And that will tell you the distance between the teeth and the flywheel. And ProMaster says that it should be between 1/10 of an inch and 1/4 inch. In my case, initially, it was only 12 thousandths of an inch, so there was essentially just a tiny gap. The way you correct that is remove the 2 screws that you would use to rotate the flange, and this entire flange is removable. The starter comes with a shim, and the shim gets put in place between the body of the starter and the flange. And you might be able to see on the camera, there are actually 2 shims in there. The shim that it comes with is 65 thousandths of an inch in thickness. I only had 12 thousandths inch gap, so 65 thousandths and 12, that would give me 77 thousandths. It's not enough. The minimum is 10, or 1/10 of an inch, or 100 thousandth. So I bought a second shim and put that in, so that's 130 thousandths plus the 12 is 142 thousandth. So that puts me right well within the range between 1/10 of an inch and 1/4 inch. And so the only other thing that I have done, and this is optional, you can do it how you want, but this starter comes with a solenoid built into it. And so older Fords always have the solenoid mounted on the passenger side fender well, and I actually like it there. If you wanted to eliminate that solenoid, you could. The ignition wires and starter wires that are going to the solenoid on the fender well would simply be routed down to this post here. I've got a rubber cap on it. Pull that off. To this post right here. And when you turn the key and hit the starter, that would engage the solenoid and actuate the starter. But I want to keep my fender mounted solenoid, so the only thing you have to do is create a little jumper wire here, and your power wire from the fender mounted solenoid will come down to the starter just as it would with the stock starter and connect to the large post. And when that solenoid engages and sends power down to this post, this jumper wire will also energize the solenoid that's built in here and allow it to start. So I don't have to change my fender mounted solenoid. I can keep that. You may want to do away with it, and that's fine, but you have options. And so I just put the jumper wire on here, and I put a little rubber cap here. It sits, the oil pan rail sits right about here, and it's got a good 1/2 inch gap or so. There's no chance of it touching accidentally. I'm more concerned with myself sticking a tool or something in there, so I just put a cap on there for safety. And when I run the battery wire down in the car, I'll be putting a cover over here as well to protect that terminal. The only other thing I had to do to prepare it to mount on this particular engine is on my QuickTime bell housing, the upper bolt hole is threaded to the stock thread pattern, which I think is 3/8/16. I could be wrong on that, but it's whatever the stock bolt is. That one's threaded to. But on my QuickTime scatter shield, the lower bolt hole is not threaded. It's larger than the stock hole, and it's not threaded. I thought about maybe tapping it and putting a larger bolt in there, but then I'd have to enlarge the hole on the starter as well. So I just got a bolt that I'll run through with a nut And there's not a lot of room on the backside because of the curvature of the opening for the starter. So the bolt is actually going to go through with the head on the back side, the threads on the forward side, and the nut will be on the lower forward there. There's plenty of room to get at it from under the car, so not concerned there. But I was a little surprised when I first test fitted it on there. I couldn't figure out why the bolt wouldn't thread in. Well, that's why. There's no threads there. So it's not a complicated procedure by any means, really, but you do need to make sure that you get those measurements properly and take advantage of the opportunity to clock the starter left or right so that you can get it wherever you want to on the engine. Just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, if you're having trouble visualizing that, is rotating it towards or away from the engine. You have that ability to do that because the flange can rotate, and so I just moved it back and forth until I found a spot that worked best for me, and I stuck with it. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out. As I said in the beginning, I've never had a problem with the stock starter. They always work fine. They're readily available and they're inexpensive. So I may have shot myself in the foot by buying a much more expensive starter, but it is smaller, it is lighter, it does have more torque, and the starters on any modern family car are like that now, and they're pretty reliable. So hopefully this one will be too. I guess we'll find out.